Welcome to Antaryami Daily, a podcast that covers interesting articles from all over world about science, technology, psychology, and many more. Keep watching. Subscribe to get notified.
I have to be honest, when I first saw the topic for today's deep dive, I had a bit of a knee-jerk reaction.
I can imagine.
I saw the title Dark Empathy, and, my brain just went straight to pop culture villains.
And Hannibal Lecter types.
Exactly. Super smart, super observant, but completely devoid of humanity.
Yeah.
This sounds sinister, doesn't it?
It definitely has a branding problem. That word dark is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Right. But then I started reading this piece by Joseph Brown in Spooky Site from just a few weeks back, and I realized my first impression was exactly the misconception he's trying to tackle.
Mm-hmm.
We usually think of empathy as this warm, fuzzy thing, the friend who cries when you cry, or the person who is basically an emotional sponge.
That's the traditional definition, for sure. It's what psychologists call affective empathy, or emotional contagion.
Emotional contagion.
It's that visceral, shared feeling where your boundaries kind of dissolve and you actually feel the other person's pain.
Which is great for bonding. But as we're about to find out, maybe not so great for, say, leading a company through a crisis.
Not at all.
And this is where Brown's article and all the research behind it just flips the script. They describe dark empathy not as being evil or cold, but as emotional intelligence on steroids.
That's the key phrase, on steroids. It implies power, performance, not malice.
Okay, so let's get into the nuts and bolts of it. The sources make this really sharp distinction between cognitive empathy and emotional contagion. This seems to be the engine driving the whole concept.
It is the engine. I mean, think of it this way. Emotional contagion is automatic. You walk into a room where people are arguing and your own stomach tightens. You feel that tension. You absorb
You
it.
catch the mood like you catch a cold.
Precisely. Now, cognitive empathy, which is the hallmark of this dark empath, is different. It's the ability to look at that argument and go, okay, person A is feeling insecure, person B is feeling defensive. You understand the emotional map perfectly. You can even predict what they'll do next. But, and this is the dark part, your own pulse doesn't speed up. You aren't feeling it with them.
So it's the difference between drowning in the water with someone, both of you flailing around,
Yeah, just trying to keep your head up.
and standing on the dock, totally dry, seeing exactly where the current is, and knowing just where to throw a rope.
That's a strong analogy. And the whole mission of this deep dive is to explore why standing on the dock might actually make you more effective, maybe even a better leader.
Because that clarity, that influence, the drowning empath just can't muster it.
Let's talk about leadership, because there was this fascinating study.
The one from the Personality Research Institute.
That's the one. They weren't looking at villains. They were studying high-level executives, crisis managers.
People who have to perform under immense pressure.
Right, and the findings were so counterintuitive. We always tell leaders, you need to be more empathetic. Feel what your team feels.
But the study found that in high-stakes situations, that kind of emotional contagion is actually a liability.
It's a huge liability. If the ship is sinking, you do not want the captain huddled in a corner weeping with the passenger.
You want the captain looking at the lifeboats and doing the math.
Exactly. The study showed that leaders with that dark empathy profile, high understanding, low contagion, they maintained what the researchers called executive function during these simulated crises.
So while everyone else's brain is flooded with cortisol and panic,
They were treating the emotions in the room as data points.
data points.
Yeah.
That sounds cold, but I totally see how it's effective. The study said their decisions stayed logical because they weren't burning energy trying to manage their own secondhand anxiety.
It's the difference between reacting and responding. When you absorb the panic, you react, you yell, you freeze. But when you just observe the panic, you can respond strategically. You can say, okay, I see the fear. What creates safety right now?
This flows perfectly into what another source called tactical empathy. Now, I love this term, but it also sounds a little manipulative,
It walks a very fine line, for sure.
like you're hacking people.
Well, think about conflict resolution. The article breaks down how these types resolve office disputes. A warm empath gets in the room, feels all the anger, feels the hurt, and often just tries to smooth things over to stop the bad feeling.
Because the conflict hurts them. They want it to stop for their own relief.
Exactly. But the dark empath, they don't mind the friction. They use that tactical empathy to validate the emotion without agreeing with it. They can look at an angry employee and say, I can see you feel disrespected by this, and mean it because they do see it.
but they aren't angry themselves.
Don't at all. And that allows them to use words with surgical precision. They know which words reassure, which words set boundaries. They can navigate the whole dynamic because they know what makes the other person tick.
So they have the cheat codes to the other person's brain.
In a way, yes. Influence becomes precise, intentional, and effective when you aren't blinded by the smoke from your own emotional fire.
Speaking of being effective, I have to bring up this statistic, the one from the Global Negotiations Forum. This actually made me stop and reread the paragraph.
I know the one you mean.
It said individuals with high emotional detachment, or dark empaths, outperform their peers in complex negotiations by 40%.
40%. In behavioral science, that is a staggering margin. You usually see, what, single digits?
So why is the gap that big? Is it just that they don't care if the other person likes them?
That's part of it, but it's more nuanced. The report chalks it up to regulation and cognitive load.
Okay, unpack that.
In a negotiation, you're tracking a dozen things: price, terms, leverage, body language. If on top of all that, you're also worrying, oh no, did I offend her? Or he looks disappointed, maybe I should give in a little. You're burning mental fuel.
You're multitasking emotionally.
Correct. The dark empath isn't doing that. They are playing chess. They see the disappointment on the other person's face, and instead of feeling guilty, they think, disappointment. That means they want the deal, but the price is too high. I can hold firm.
So they're reading the emotion as a tell, like in poker, not as a social cue to be nice.
And that lets them stay calm. And in a negotiation, the calmest person in the room almost always has the upper hand. It's not about being dominant. It's about having clarity.
Okay, so that's the offense. But what really grabbed me was the defensive side of this. Because the world is full of people trying to manipulate you.
Yeah.
And the dark empath seems to have this, like, built-in radar.
This is where the superpower aspect really shines. Because they map emotions cognitively, they are constantly comparing these data streams. What you're saying, what your face is doing, the context. If those things don't line up,
If the audio doesn't match the video.
a red light goes on. It's that something feels off sensation, but for them, it's not just a vibe, it's a specific alert.
And this is why they're supposedly so good at dealing with narcissists.
Oh, absolutely. Let's dig into that, because for a traditional empath, dealing with a narcissist is a nightmare.
You get hooked so easily.
You do, because a narcissist feeds on reaction. They project an emotion, victimhood, rage, whatever, specifically to get a rise out of you. The traditional empath bites that hook every time. They try to explain, apologize, fix the narcissist's feelings. They just get dragged in.
They supply the fuel for the fire.
Exactly. The dark empath, they see the hook, they recognize it as a mechanism. They think, oh, he's acting angry to make me feel guilty, so I'll agree to his request.
And because they don't feel the guilt,
They don't bite, they don't get hooked. They can just observe the tantrum without absorbing it. It drives manipulators crazy, but it protects the empath completely. One source even called it gaslighting protection.
that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Gaslighting only works if you doubt your own perception. But if you're tracking inconsistencies in real time, the manipulation is just obvious. It's like, nope, the math doesn't add up here.
It turns what feels like a psychological attack into a puzzle to be solved. And that detachment brings us to one of the biggest internal benefits: resilience.
The burnout factor. I mean, I feel like everyone I know is burnt out. And a lot of it is from just carrying too much. You carry the weight of everything.
That's the energy drain of high contagion. It's exhausting. The dark empath has what one article called emotional insulation.
The Harvard Business Review study had a wild stat on this. It said emotionally detached individuals recovered from professional disappointments 50% faster.
50%. That's huge. It's the difference between a ruined week and a bad Tuesday morning.
So what's the mechanism?
Well, when a warm empath fails, it often feels personal. It's an identity crisis. I failed, therefore I am a failure. The shame spirals.
Right. It's not about the project. It's about you.
But the dark empath looks at failure structurally. I failed. Why? Oh, I misread the client's needs. It's analysis, not self-blame. So they pivot to, how do I fix this so much faster, because they aren't wading through a swamp of self-loathing first.
Perspective over panic. The sources talk about how focus becomes a tool, not a struggle.
It allows for a kind of sustained performance that is very hard to achieve if you're on an emotional roller coaster all day.
But, and I have to play devil's advocate here, doesn't this all make them sound like robots? Or worse, charming sociopaths? I mean, can you really be kind if you aren't feeling it?
That is the million-dollar question. And the Social Intelligence Quarterly argues that, yes, you can. In fact, they use a term I love, purposeful kindness.
Purposeful kindness.
Yeah.
How is that different from just regular kindness?
Regular kindness is often reactive. It's generic warmth. Oh, you're sad. Here's a hug. It's a blanket solution.
Okay.
Purposeful kindness is targeted. Because the dark empath reads the room so well, they know who has influence, who feels threatened, who needs validation. They can deliver exactly what that specific person needs in that moment.
So instead of a generic hug, they might realize this person is stressed because they feel their authority is being undermined. And the kindness isn't a hug, it's publicly deferring to their expertise in a meeting.
Exactly, it's surgical. And the research suggests people appreciate being accurately seen far more than they appreciate being vaguely comforted. It builds massive trust.
The article also mentioned an exit strategy as a social skill. This one made me laugh because I think we've all stayed at a party or a job way too long out of guilt.
Guilt is a contagion response. I can't leave, they'll feel bad. The dark empath sees the dynamic turning toxic. The conversation is spiraling, the culture is rotting, and they just step out.
They see the storm clouds on the horizon.
And they leave strategically. It's not about abandonment, it's about foresight, protecting their energy, their reputation. They disengage before the explosion.
Which brings us to the ethics of all this. We've danced around it, but is dark empathy actually good? Or is it just a tool for being effective?
It's a tool, and like any powerful tool, it's neutral until you use it. But a report from the Center for Modern Leadership on Protective Leadership really frames this well.
What did they find?
They found that teams led by these so-called dark empaths actually had lower anxiety and higher trust than average.
Lower anxiety. You'd think the opposite, with a cold boss.
But the boss isn't volatile. They're consistent. And they use that radar we talked about to spot threats to the team. They see the office politics coming. They see the burnout on the horizon, and they block it.
So they use that power to act as a shield. They absorb the complexities the team doesn't have to.
Exactly. Just because you can manipulate doesn't mean you do. When you pair the skill with a strong ethical code, you use that insight to create clarity and safety. You become the rock in the storm precisely because you're not swept up in it.
It seems like the dark label is really a misnomer then. It's more like controlled empathy.
Or boundaried empathy. It's the realization that you don't have to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm.
I like that. So let's wrap this up. We've gone from the definition to the boardroom to resilience. What's the big takeaway for someone listening who maybe recognizes this in themselves or wants to develop it?
The takeaway is that empathy is a skill, not just a feeling. It can be cultivated. You can train yourself to pause that immediate emotional reaction and engage the cognitive understanding part of your brain first.
It's about creating that split-second gap between feeling something and acting on it.
And that offers a way to be deeply connected to the world, to understand it intimately without being destroyed by it. It turns social intelligence into that quiet superpower we mentioned at the start.
So here's a thought to take with you, and I'm going to try this myself.
Next time you're in a high-stakes interaction, a tough conversation, a chaotic meeting, just for a second, check in with yourself. Are you reacting to the emotions in the room, getting swept up in the wave?
Or are you reading them? Are you drowning or are you standing on the dock? The difference might just be your new superpower. Thanks for deep diving with us.
See you next time.